Hey guys, tonight we sneak through alleyways, slick with rain, slip behind creaking tavern doors, and press ourselves against stone walls chilled by moonlight. You're not a knight, not a noble, not even a respected thief. You're an assassin in the Middle Ages, trained to vanish, kill, and vanish again. No name, no thanks, no future. And tonight, you're about to find out why it absolutely sucked to be you. You tug your hood low and pray the guard dogs don't catch your scent. You haven't bathed in, well, you lost count after 3 monasteries and a wine cellar job gone wrong. Your boots squelch as you slink through the muck. Again, not rain. You try not to think about it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're always on the run. That's the first thing you learn when you take up the blade and accept that coin pouch. There's no base camp, no hideout with shag rugs and fruit platters. You sleep where rats sleep, under carts, inside hay bales, or, if you're really lucky, on the roof of a leper hospice. You start to admire lepers for their privacy, honestly. Every noble's guard has heard the rumors. Secret orders, black-robed killers, whispers of the hidden blade, which means you are a walking myth with a face people want to crush into a wanted poster. And that's assuming they don't just kill you on sight first and ask questions later. You're faster than most, have to be, but you're not a ghost. One slip of your footing, one wrong turn in a market, and suddenly you're being chased by torch-bearing soldiers who don't believe in second chances. You might think, why not hide in the woods? And you do sometimes. You crouch under wet pine trees while mosquitoes turn you into their buffet. You eat stolen bread that's older than your last confession. And don't forget the wild boars, aggressive, territorial, and historically proven to bite through bone. Historians still argue whether one notorious assassin met his end from a prince's blade or a pig's tusk during a botched escape near Toulouse. Even in town, your life's a labyrinth of distrust. You can't return to the same tavern twice. The barmaid you flirted with last week, her brother's a city watchman. The merchant who gave you a discount on boots, he's been dead 3 days, poisoned probably, but his neighbor thinks your arrival was suspicious. At any given moment, at least 2 people are paid to look for you, one wants revenge, and one is just very sure you winked at their wife. You lose your name early on. It's easier that way. You're not Thomas or Renard anymore. You're just the ghost, the whisper, that hooded creep who never tips. The stress never stops. Even in sleep, you jerk awake when a door creaks or a crow squawks. A nice breeze on your face could be an arrow. The clink of metal behind you might be a friend or your last breath. The worst part, you start to love it. The adrenaline becomes your lullaby. You don't feel normal unless your heart's pounding and your stomach's twisting. Kind of like dating, but with more daggers. There are moments, rare ones, when the sky clears and you look down at a city from a tower's edge. The wind stirs your hood and you feel something close to peace. And then you hear a horn. They've found you. Again. You drop into a cart full of manure because, of course, and sprint. Your knees scream, your lungs burn, and your cloak catches on every nail in the kingdom. You turn corners so fast you practically live sideways. Your pursuers shout, "Stop, thief," which is honestly a little insulting. You killed a duke last week and they reduce you to thief. Eventually, you escape. You always do, but the bruises stay, and so does the feeling that next time, maybe you won't be lucky. Or maybe you'll run into him, that one knight who doesn't miss, who trains every day just for people like you. But what choice do you have? You can't quit. You're in too deep. There's no retirement plan, no sunny farm waiting for you, just more shadows, more running, and more nights like this. You can't even trust your reflection. It looks tired, haunted, and honestly, kinda stinky. Still, you keep going, because running's better than hanging, and because somewhere out there, someone needs you dead, and you've got the chance to get them first. Killing's the easy part. You'd think that's the worst bit, taking someone's life with your bare hands, watching the light leave their eyes, maybe muttering a quick apology into their silk pillow as you slip out the window. But no, that's the least miserable moment in your day. The true suffering comes after. Because once the job is done, the clock starts ticking. The guards will notice the blood. The servants will find the body. The bells will ring. And you're probably halfway down a spiral staircase with a dagger in your boot, a twisted ankle, and the scent of roast pheasant clinging to your clothes because you passed through the kitchen and were this close to stealing a drumstick. You try to stay composed, professional. But escape routes in medieval castles aren't designed with your convenience in mind. There's no secret assassin exit with velvet ropes and a complimentary mint. You duck through cellars, crawl through chimneys, and, on one particularly dreadful night, slide face first into a monk's latrine pit. Spoiler alert, monks eat a lot of lentils. You never look at soup the same again. There was one time, not long ago, when you got cocky. The mission went smooth. One precise jab between the ribs. No screams, not even a startled gasp. You practically skipped out through the servants' corridor. But then the floorboards betrayed you with a loud, splintering creak, and suddenly you were running barefoot across a snow-covered courtyard while men in chainmail shouted things that don't bear repeating. Historians still argue whether a certain noble family added iron squeakers to their halls specifically to catch intruders like you. You don't always flee on foot, of course. Sometimes it's horseback, if you can find one that doesn't immediately throw you off, or a gondola once during that dreadful Venice job. You paddled so slowly, so awkwardly, that you became the prime suspect simply by being the worst gondolier in recorded history. You've also hidden inside barrels, sacks of grain, and, on one particularly itchy night, a wagon full of goose feathers. Every time you survive a mission, you whisper a little thank you to the universe and promise you'll retire soon. You never do. But the lie comforts you. And don't get too sentimental about your victims. Most of them are corrupt, cruel, or both. Still, there's the occasional soft-eyed scholar who made too many enemies, or the unfortunate cousin of a king who knew too much. Those are the ones that haunt your sleep. You see their faces in puddles, in candle flames, even in the shine of your blade. The guilt comes in waves, like some divine punishment doled out in the quiet moments. There's no therapist for people like you, just confession booths. And you can't exactly say, "Forgive me, Father, for I dropped a chandelier on a merchant prince during Mass." You settle for vague sins. You say, "I was unkind." The priest probably assumes you cheated at dice or kicked a goose, if only. It gets to you, the constant mask, the creeping fear, the knowledge that this job might be your last, that you'll trip, miss, or find out too late that the Duke has a hidden breastplate sewn into his doublet. Yes, that happened. No, it did not end well. The real terror? It's getting caught. It's getting caught in the wrong place. Because some cities throw you in the stocks. Others, They go straight for trial by water. If you float, you're guilty. If you drowned, congrats, you're innocent, and also dead. Hooray for medieval justice. You've learned to be quiet, quick, and forgettable. But that only works until you end up in some lord's treasure chamber trying to sneak past a parrot who just will not shut up. Yes, parrots were exotic and rare, but some nobles kept them. You now hate birds in all forms. And when it's finally over, when you've limped back to your hideout, pulled thorns out of your tunic, and scraped the mystery sludge off your boots, you collapse on a straw pallet. Breathe shallowly and ask yourself the question you always ask. Why do I do this? There's no clear answer. Maybe it's the coin, though you're always broke. We'll get to that later. Maybe it's the thrill, the chase, the sense that you're part of something bigger, some secret order saving the world from itself. Or maybe you just don't know how to stop. But tonight, you're alive. That's what matters. And you didn't die trying to escape through a chute designed for chamber pots. So, honestly, call that a win. Your boss probably hates you. Not in a dramatic mustache-twirling villain sort of way. No, it's subtler than that. It's the kind of hate that simmers under a polite nod. The kind that wraps itself in the phrase, "I expected better." See, you're not a solo operator. Not really. Medieval assassins often belonged to guilds, brotherhoods, or underground networks with names that sounded cooler than they were. The Silent Hand, the Black Mantle, or, in one case, the Goose of Vengeance. Historians still argue whether that last one was a real syndicate or just a poorly translated tavern joke. And while you imagine the Brotherhood is all whispered secrets and noble ideals, the truth is a little messier. Your superior, the one who calls the shots, probably hasn't done field work in years. They sit in a candlelit room scribbling notes with ink-stained fingers and telling you things like, you must make the bishop's death look like an accident, without giving you the slightest clue how to make a crossbow bolt look like natural causes. They micromanage everything, yet take credit for your wins. Did you infiltrate a fortress using only a fishmonger's cart and a dead man's boots? Excellent, they say. My strategy worked flawlessly. Did you slip on roof tiles and knock out a stable boy on your way out? Your lack of precision is costing us. It doesn't help that trust in this line of work is, shall we say, minimal. You're constantly being tested. A new recruit is sent to shadow you, ostensibly for training, but let's be honest, it's surveillance. You're given assignments with suspicious overlaps, like being sent to eliminate the same person twice. Were they sloppy? Or checking if you actually did it the first time. And if you ask too many questions, like why that last job involved a sealed letter that you weren't allowed to read, you're met with one of three responses. 1, you're not ready for that knowledge. 2, loyalty doesn't question orders. Or 3, a knife in your ribs at breakfast. There's always some secret inner circle above you. And above them. It never ends. It's like being in a very deadly pyramid scheme. You think you're climbing, but the higher you go, the more unstable it gets. One wrong word in the wrong ear, and suddenly you're on the list. You know the list. Everyone does. No one's ever seen it. No one wants to. One of your fellow assassins, call him Bram, once joked about the Grand Master's fondness for silk slippers. 2 days later, Bram got reassigned to a job in the northern mountains, on foot, in winter, alone. No one ever heard from him again, except maybe wolves. You dream sometimes about confronting your boss, telling them off, asking, Why do you never do the wet work yourself? But then you remember they did. Once. Long ago. And the story always ends with, and the village hasn't been the same since. No one explains further. You don't ask. The worst part, you still want their approval. You crave that nod, the occasional well done, the rare coin bonus that doesn't bounce when you drop it. It's pathetic, but it's real. After all, this life doesn't come with praise. Most people curse your name if they know it at all. You live in silence. So when your superior says, "You did well," it echoes in your skull for days. And every once in a while, they invite you into the inner chamber. Not for punishment, not for scolding, but for a briefing, just you and them. A candle, a map, a slow smile. You feel trusted, valued, almost respected. That's when you should worry the most. Because if they're being nice, it means the job is dangerous, maybe even suicidal. Maybe they're offering you the chance to go out in glory. Or maybe they're done with you, and this is their way of cleaning house, with a mission so impossible it politely removes you from the payroll. You nod, accept the scroll, and walk away. And as the door creaks shut behind you, you swear you hear them whisper, "Next time, someone quieter." Fashion is not on your side. Seriously, whoever designed the assassin look must have had a personal vendetta against comfort. You imagine sweeping cloaks, elegant hoods, and mysterious silhouettes flitting across rooftops like shadowy panthers. Reality? Try wool. Itchy, heavy, rain-absorbing wool, and lots of it. Your standard outfit isn't chosen for flair. It's built from whatever's available, cheap, and won't make you stand out too much. The dark cloak? Yes, it helps you blend in at night. But it also smells like mildew, gets caught on everything, and once very nearly caused your death when it snagged on a butcher's hook mid-escapade. The boots? Leather, stiff, and about 2 sizes too small because you traded for them in a hurry after losing yours in a swamp. You told yourself they'd stretch. They didn't. Let's not even talk about your belt. It carries everything. Throwing knives, smoke pellets, lock picks, emergency bread crusts. It also sags constantly and squeaks when you walk. You've spent more time oiling that stupid belt than you've spent eating actual meals. And heaven forbid you try to run. It all swings around like a traveling blacksmith's toolkit. The hood is iconic, yes. You pull it low and instantly you feel cooler, more in control. But it limits your vision, blocks your hearing, and gets blown back by the wind at the worst moments. During one mission, it flew up into your eyes mid-leap, and you face-planted into a flower cart. Onlookers clapped. The flower vendor offered you lavender for bruising. And we haven't even touched on medieval underwear, because there wasn't much. Just layers of linen if you were lucky, or scratchy, unwashed tunics if you weren't. Let's just say chafing is a regular companion. You don't walk so much as hobble with purpose. And when it rains, everything clings. Everything. Which makes climbing walls a slippery, freezing nightmare and removes any shred of dignity you once had. Some days you try to pass for a merchant or a stable hand just to avoid the cloak and dagger aesthetic. But even then, you're never convincing. You're too quiet, too lean, too full of tension, like you're ready to leap off a wall or break someone's arm with a spoon. People stare, kids point, dogs bark, always the dogs. There was one trend you attempted, blending in with the clergy. You borrowed a novice monk's robe, tied your hair back, and practiced looking vaguely confused. It worked until someone asked you to sing. Turns out your voice is less divine choir and more dying badger. The jig was up. You sprinted out of that abbey with a candle snuffer stuck in your belt and 2 monks cursing you in Latin. Of course, there are fringe perks to your look. When the lighting's right and you're standing atop a battlement, hood rippling in the wind, cloak billowing just so, you do look kind of cool, like the hero of a story no one's allowed to tell. You've caught your reflection in puddles, frozen panes of glass, even polished helmets. For a split second, you believe it. The silent protector, the knight's edge, the unseen blade. Then your boot leaks, again, and you remember the hay rash forming on your back from last night's bed. Historians still argue whether some assassin orders had formal uniforms or simply wore practical, dull clothing suited to the region. There's little consensus, but the romantic image of sleek, leather-clad phantoms, probably more fantasy than fact. You've tried leather armor before. It squeaks loudly. Try sneaking into a noble's quarters when you sound like a mobile wine cellar. And yet, here you are, adjusting your wrinkled tunic and retying your lopsided hood for the 100th time. Because the job doesn't care how stylish you look. It cares that you blend in, that you slip past the guard in the alley, vanish into a crowd, or disappear into a cellar door like you were never there. Even if you're drenched, freezing, and smell like wet hay, that's part of the look.
The tools are terrible. Let's get that out of the way. You don't have sleek gadgets or whist-mounted dart launchers. What you've got is a rusty dagger, a vial of suspicious liquid that might be poison, and a garrote made from an old bootlace. Welcome to the arsenal of disappointment. Your main weapon is the blade. Small, easy to hide, and reliable, at least when it's sharp. But sharpening costs time, coin, and access to someone who won't ask why your knife smells like dried blood and onions. So, most of the time, your dagger is about as sharp as a spoon. And when it is sharp, it slices through your belt pouch on accident and dumps your hard-earned coins into a sewer drain. That's not even a metaphor. You cried. Then there's poison. Sounds fancy, right? Exotic vials, mysterious brews, silent deaths in candlelit chambers. But poison making is a deeply unpleasant hobby. You spend hours boiling herbs that smell like rotting eggs, scraping fungus from tomb walls, or collecting very angry insects. And one sneeze, while grinding up nightshade powder, and it's you who ends up convulsing in a barn loft, praying no one finds you foaming at the mouth. Worse still, half the stuff doesn't work. You slip it into wine, and your target just burps and asks for more. You lace a letter seal with it, and the courier dies instead. Historians still argue whether medieval poisons were truly as effective as legend claims, or if most deaths attributed to sorcery were just poorly cooked meat. Either way, you've had more luck with falling flower pots than with toxic herbs. Let's talk garrotes, a silent killer's best friend, until it snaps. The first time you tried one was with twine. Bad idea. Your target yelled, flailed, and hit you in the face with a candlestick. You staggered out of that hallway with broken pride and a new respect for candlesticks. Now you use leather cord. It smells awful and sticks to your neck in summer, but it holds, usually. Your lockpicks are bent nails, hairpins, or bits of wire you fished out of a blacksmith's bin. And most of the locks you face are less complicated puzzle and more chunky block of rusted iron. Half the time you can't pick the lock. You just kick it until the door gives. So much for subtlety. You've tried smoke pellets, once. Made them yourself, based on the formula scrawled on parchment by a guy who spelled sulfur like soul fire. You lit one,
threw it dramatically into a room, and watched as it puffed out a single, underwhelming puff. Smelled like old cabbage. Everyone stared. You ran. There's rope, of course. You always carry rope. It's the most useful thing in your kit, until you forget where you stashed it, or you misjudge the length and end up dangling 10 feet above the ground like a confused bat. One time your rope slipped, and you dropped straight into a bishop's wine cellar during a wedding feast. The bride still tells that story, apparently. Your outfit might include hidden pouches with dust or sand to throw in someone's face. Sounds clever. Except you forgot which pouch it was last time and tossed dried berries at a guard. He was more confused than blinded. You both just stood there awkwardly before you ran. Every tool you carry adds weight. Every pouch jingles, rattles, or creaks. You try to oil everything, pad it with linen, wrap it in felt. But you still sound like a one-man percussion section whenever you sprint. So sometimes you ditch half your gear just to move faster, which is great, until you need the very thing you left behind. And let's not forget torches. You rarely use them, but when you do, they're both your savior and your enemy. Need to find your way through a crypt? Torch. Need to set a hay cart on fire as a distraction? Torch. Need to accidentally light your own cloak on fire while climbing out of a window? Also torch. You learned that one the hard way. There was one glorious week where you got your hands on a crossbow. Sleek, powerful, surprisingly accurate. You felt like a noble's nightmare. Then you realized it takes forever to reload, weighs as much as a goat, and gets stuck on your back every time you climb. You abandoned it in a barrel near Ghent. Still miss it. The truth is, you make do with what you have. You're less assassin, more improvisational disaster artist. A candle becomes a weapon. A shoe becomes a distraction. A pie? A decoy. And on your best days, everything somehow works. But most days, you sigh, pick up your half-broken dagger, and whisper to yourself, maybe this time it won't. You smell like a dungeon. And no, that's not some dramatic metaphor. It's your actual scent. A pungent, ever-evolving cocktail of sweat, mildew, candle wax, damp wool, and something disturbingly close to spoiled meat. You know it's bad when even the rats start avoiding you. Hygiene in the Middle Ages isn't exactly a top priority. Bathing, rare. Soap, harsh, and often just lard mixed with ashes. You've tried scented herbs, lavender in your cloak, rosemary in your boots, but they do little to mask the reality. You've been sleeping in stables, crawling through chimneys, and rolling through sewers more often than most people change their tunics. And the sewers? Oh, the sewers. Somehow, your escape route always leads through one. Every city seems to have a key trait in common. All roads lead to filth. You trudge waist-deep in muck, trying not to gag, whispering apologies to your boots. Once in Prague, you dropped a throwing knife down a drain and actually considered jumping in after it. You didn't, but you still think about it. Climbing buildings doesn't help. Roof tiles are dusty, birds are everywhere, and pigeons don't care about your mission. You get pecked, you get droppings, you once got a flea infestation that took weeks to shake. Your whole guild laughed. You didn't. Even when you do ever manage a decent stream or rain barrel to wash in, you do it with one eye over your shoulder. No time to soak or scrub. Just a quick splash, a muttered prayer, and a new layer of travel grime within the hour. If you do ever manage a proper bath, say in a monastery or disguised in a noble's bathhouse, you emerge feeling like a completely new person. until you realize your clothes are still filthy, your boots still stink, and now you just smell confused. Your hair? A matted mop. You cut it yourself, usually with the same knife you use for jobs. Uneven, jagged, and once resulted in you being mistaken for a monk-child hybrid. You don't bother anymore. The hood covers it. Kind of. Let's not forget the stains. Blood, yours and others, wine, soot, candle wax, and something green that oozed out of a magical healing salve you tried once. Spoiler, it didn't heal anything. It did make you smell like compost for 4 straight days. There was a time, early in your career, when you tried to keep up appearances. You brushed your teeth with crushed mint leaves, rinsed your boots, even stitched up torn seams. But that was before your 5th job. Before the night you hid in a sheep carcass to escape a baron's hunting dogs. You haven't been the same since. Historians still argue whether medieval assassins had grooming rituals or simply leaned into their grime. Some accounts suggest members of secret orders wore perfumed pouches or chewed cloves to mask breath. I tried cloves once. I choked. It was not dignified. Every now and then, someone comments on your smell. A tavern girl wrinkles her nose. A fellow assassin jokingly leaves you a bar of soap. A monk offers incense. You smile, nod, and then vanish into the shadows, half out of shame, half because you genuinely enjoy freaking people out. The real irony is your scent can actually be useful. Dogs track you easily, yes, but so can your allies. In a dark corridor or busy market, someone can whisper, "I smelled turnip and firewood. He must be nearby." You're like a walking breadcrumb trail made of body odor. Sometimes you envy the nobles. Their scented oils, fur-lined cloaks, and bath attendants who pour rose water into marble tubs. Then you remember nobles get poisoned, stabbed, and defenestrated. You only get rashes. Perspective. Still, you dream of cleanliness, of standing in a sunlit courtyard, arms raised, while buckets of warm, soapy water pour over you. No fleas, no grime, just a clean cloak, fresh bread, and nobody shouting, "Assassin!" in the distance. You wake up from that dream smiling. Then your nose reminds you fell asleep in a hayloft next to a goat with digestion issues. But you carry on, because even if you stink like a prison latrine on market day, you're still alive, you're still sharp. And in your line of work, that's what counts, not the smell.
You don't sleep that night. How could you? Every creak of a rafter, every muffled hoot of an owl, every flicker of torchlight across the shutters sets your blood pumping. You lie with your dagger unsheathed beneath the straw, one hand gripping the worn, leather-wrapped hilt. You've changed inns twice in 3 days, doubled back along country roads, and walked through a freezing creek to mask your trail. But you're not sure it's enough, because someone out there knows your name. You were careful, so you thought. Masked face, swift blade, silent exit. But you underestimated who your mark knew. Nobles talk, secrets leak. And while the Assassin's Guild might try to protect its own, their loyalty comes with limits and prices. So now you wait, not for rest, but for silence, for the long dead hush of midnight. Then you move again. The stars are veiled by clouds when you finally slip into the dark. Roads are too exposed. You take the forest path,
garnered with roots and slick with mist. The moonlight breaks through in patches, silvering the blades of your twin daggers. You move like mist over rock, swift but deliberate, every motion trained, every step mapped. But it's not the forest that turns against you. It's your own body. 3 nights without sleep, 2 days of starvation. You haven't eaten since the crust of stale bread stolen from a market stall in Brignoles. Your limbs ache, your gut knots, your head spins with the beginnings of fever from the filthy river you crossed barefoot yesterday. You trained for this, but even a blade sharpens only so far before it snaps. Your contact in this region, a hedge priest known to funnel coin and secrets for the guild, is supposed to meet you by the ruins. You wait under the archway of a shattered bell tower. Cold drips through the holes in your cloak. Your breath ghosts in the air like the spirits of those you've slain. And when he finally arrives, the blood drains from your face, because it's not him. It's 2 men in boiled leather and a third in the sigil cloak of House d'Aveline, the same noble family whose steward you bled dry in the bathhouse 4 nights ago. They smile when they see you. That smug, cruel, noble smile, the one that says, "You've already lost," and you're too tired to run. The fight is short and brutal. You go for the closest man, a dagger low and fast, aiming for his thigh artery. It lands, but the blade catches bone. You wrench it free and twist, but the second has already circled to your blind side. You taste blood, your own, before you feel the wound. Something cracks inside your ribs as he drives a mace into your side. The noble doesn't fight. He watches, just like they all do. Smug lords with clean hands, whose dirty work is always done by men like you. But you weren't trained to die easy. Even half broken, you roll, slash, drive a knee into one man's groin. A knife finds his throat mid-curse. Another lunge sends your shoulder shrieking in agony, but your blade carves a red smile across a second man's cheek. Then the noble draws his sword. You lurch to your feet, barely holding stance, soaked in blood, yours and theirs. He approaches with practiced arrogance. His blade is polished steel, yours is chipped iron. His hands wear velvet, yours are calloused and raw. When he thrusts, it's too fast. Pain blossoms, your breath catches. But so does his, because your second dagger, hidden in your sleeve, has found the soft flesh under his ribs. The noble gasps, drops his sword. You fall together in a heap of blood and broken promises. Somehow, hours later, you crawl from the ruins, your left eyes swelling shut. You can barely walk, but you live. And in your world, that's enough. Another mission might come, another name to cross off, another city to escape. But tonight, under a broken moon and surrounded by death, you remind yourself of a simple truth. Assassins don't die easy, but they sure as hell suffer long. You wake to the sound of flies. They've found the bodies before anyone else, even the noble. His fine cloak is soaked through, the silken trim clinging to stone like wet seaweed. You almost pity him until you shift and scream into your clenched teeth as your broken ribs protest. You can't stay here, not with corpses cooling, not when someone might come searching. Your mind, though fogged, claws toward the only place left, Chapel Hollow. A hidden guild haven tucked inside a ruined monastery beyond the southern woodlands. You've never been, but the whispers claim it's where the old ones go to mend, to rest, or to disappear entirely. If you can make it there, maybe you'll survive long enough to be forgotten. But the journey is torment. With no horse and no coin, every mile is paid in pain. You eat roots, you drink rainwater, you bind your wounds with strips torn from your own cloak. You grow so weak you nearly mistake a pilgrim trail for a bandit camp, until you see the worn sandals and the weary faces of real believers. They stare at you like you're a ghost. In truth, you might as well be. You pass without a word, because you've learned silence keeps you breathing. Days blur. Then one morning, as mist clings low across the marshes, you see it, what's left of Chapel Hollow. A monastery burned decades ago during one of the many wars that never truly ended. Stone arches still stand, blackened by fire. Ivy and shadow drape the bones of old faith. But beneath it, deep within, is a vault untouched by flame or time. You knock thrice on a sunken stone, then twice more. A panel grinds open. A voice, calm, old, bored, says, "Enter, leave your sins at the threshold, but bring your coin." You stagger in. Inside, it's another world. Low-lit chambers carved into limestone. Braziers flicker beside pallets and weapons racks. An old woman with a gnarled back and eyes like knives stitches a man's chest with black thread. Another assassin, missing 2 fingers, sharpening a scimitar with steady rhythm. You're no one here, just another killer bleeding quietly in the corner. They don't ask names, that's not how this place works. But as you lie on a stone slab, bandages being wrapped tight across your ribs, the healer leans close and says, "You crossed someone high, didn't you?" You blink once. She chuckles. You lot always come limping in after some noble's cousin ends up with a slit throat. They never learn, neither do you. A week passes. You heal. Barely. But something shifted inside you. It's not just the wounds. It's the way every eye in Chapel Hollow lingers on you too long. The way 2 of your requests for weapons go unanswered. The way a message arrives from the guild, sealed in wax you don't recognize. Inside is a name. Yours. And next to it a symbol you've only seen once before. The black circle. A mark not of honor, but of judgment. You're being hunted. Not just from noblemen or city guards, by your own. Why? Because you left witnesses? Because you killed a noble's son? Because you lived when someone else expected you to die? Or maybe because someone inside the guild sold you out. It's happened before. The guild is a nest of vipers, power struggles, old grudges, coin changing hands in back rooms. You may have climbed fast, but you've made enemies, and one of them just bought your death. No trial, no appeal, just the black circle and the silence that follows. You stand that night, aching but resolved. You can't run anymore, and you're too damn tired to hide. So you choose the only thing left to you. You'll fight. Not for redemption, not for vengeance, but because surviving is the only rebellion an assassin is ever allowed to do. And you've gotten very, very good at it. You leave Chapel Hollow before dawn. No one stops you. No one asks why. In places like this, silence is safer than questions. But the stairs follow you through the halls like shadows. By the time the sun edges over the horizon, the forest is already at your back. You don't know exactly where you're going, but you know this: staying still is death. You need coin. You need a disguise. You need information. But above all, you need to find out who marked your name in the black circle. Because the guild doesn't warn you they're coming. They warn others to stay out of the way. You make your way to an old contact, an information broker named Ricard the Bastard. He's not your friend. No one in your world is, but he owes you. Years ago, you cut a noose from around his neck when a corrupt bailiff tried to hang him without trial. He lives in the sewer levels beneath Carforn, a city that reeks of fish and ambition. You enter through a cracked drainage pipe, knees bent low, every nerve on fire. A child leads you by candlelight to a mold-slick room behind a tapestry of dried animal skin. Ricard is there, counting silver, smiling like a hyena. Dead men don't usually visit, he says. You toss the message scroll on the table. He reads it. His smile fades. You're marked, he whispers, then whistles. Black circle. That's worse than I thought. You sit, slow and stiff. Who paid, you ask. Ricard taps his fingers together, calculating what your question is worth. Then he says a name that curdles your stomach. Myerick of Red Gate. Myerick, your former guild sponsor, the one who pulled you from the gutters, fed you, trained you, gave you your first blade. The same man who once told you, "You're the best thing I ever stole." You remember his crooked grin, his hard eyes. You remember the pride in his voice the day you completed your first sanctioned kill. You remember when he called you kid, like it meant something warm. He marked you, not for failure, not for betrayal, but because you were becoming a threat. And Myerick doesn't tolerate threats. You don't cry. Assassins don't cry. But something in you fractures, not loud, not sudden, just a slow crumbling inside the walls you'd built to survive this life. Still, emotion is a luxury you can't afford. Not now. So you trade Ricard a secret you've carried for 6 years, where the real Prince of Lorne disappeared after the fire, for coin and silence. Then you leave, richer and emptier. For the next 3 weeks, you become a ghost. You dye your hair with ash and lie. You steal a merchant's clothes and burn your old ones in a brazier behind a whorehouse. You wear a false scar. You limp when you don't need to. You sleep in haylofts, in barrels, in the crawl spaces behind crumbling city walls. But you're not running. You're watching. You trail Myerick's known contacts. You slip bribes to the lowliest messengers. You intercept letters, decode ciphers. The guild's web is vast. Assassins, spies, nobles, merchants. But you used to be one of its best threads. And now you use everything it taught you against it. Finally, you get what you need. Myerick is meeting a new recruit, a prodigy, they say. Young, fast, gifted, trained to kill you. Of course, he wouldn't do it himself. Myerick never gets his hands dirty. He just sends others to drown in the blood he stirs. The meeting is set in a wine cellar beneath Sable Manor, one of the old safe houses. You arrive an hour early, because of course you do. You wait in the rafters, breathing slow. The cellar is dim, lit by 3 hanging lanterns. Dust cloaks every surface. You see rats. You smell mildew, rot, and something sharper, like betrayal. When Myerick arrives, he's older than you remember, thinner. But those eyes are the same, cold and calculating. And the boy beside him? 15, maybe 16. Shaven head, piercing gaze, a short sword at his belt, but a dagger in his boot. Hidden, but not to you. You've worn those boots. You've hidden that dagger. You see yourself in him. That's what Myerick does. He finds the hungry, the forgotten, the ones no one will miss. And then he trains them to kill. When they step deeper into the room, you drop behind them with the silence of snowfall. Myerick turns. He doesn't look surprised. "You lasted longer than I thought," he says. You say nothing. The boy steps forward. "Stand down," you tell him quietly. "You don't want this fight." He hesitates. Myerick sneers. He's better than you ever were, faster, smarter. But the boy still doesn't draw. You look at him and say, "You think he'll protect you? He just put a black circle next to your name. You just haven't seen it yet." That's when Myarick lunges. He's older, but he fights like a man who's killed 100 times. You fight like someone with nothing to lose. Your blade flashes. His slashes deep. The room echoes with grunts and steel. Blood spatters the stone walls. A lantern crashes, spilling fire and smoke. You drive your dagger home just below Myarick's ribs. He gasps, eyes wide. "No one leaves the guild," he wheezes. You twist the blade. "I'm not leaving. I'm burning it down." Here is sections 11 and 12 of your dark historical epic. Carrying forward from the moment you struck Myarick down in the cellar, now focusing on why it sucked to be a medieval assassin.
You leave Myarick's body where it falls. No words, no farewell, no ritual. He was the closest thing to a father you ever knew, and he sold you like a coin passed in the dark. You won't mourn him. You'll bury his memory the same way he tried to bury you, quietly and with finality. The cellar burns behind you. The boy doesn't follow. He could have. You even gave him a look, a silent invitation, a promise of another path. But he just watched you go, jaw clenched, eyes full of doubt. You once stood in that same place, and you made the same mistake. You don't stop moving for 2 days. By the time the smoke from Sable Manor rises into distant skies, you're already miles away. You've changed your name again, swapped clothes with a traveling knife juggler outside a tavern, kept your blades but ditched everything else. Your ribs ache, though the wound no longer bleeds. But the mark on your name, that still festers. You killed your sponsor. That was an unforgivable sin. The guild might have overlooked betrayal. They might have even forgiven defection. But a murder from within, of a high-ranking handler? Now they'll send everything. You understand the guild better than most. It began as whispers among monks. Holy men turned killers during crusades. From abbots with knives came apprentices. From apprentices came networks. Then coin. Then nobles. Then power. Now they operate in every major city in the realm, from the king's court to the gutters of the harbor slums. Their influence runs deeper than blood. Their contracts write destinies. No war begins without them knowing. No heir dies without their permission. You were part of that once. Now you're something worse. An error in their system. And errors must be erased. You hide among caravans, take a fake merchant name. You polish blades for actors and sell herbs to soldiers, all while listening, always listening. In an eastern port, you hear the first rumor. A guild blade found in the ash at Sable Manor. Then another, Myarick dead, killed by his own. Then finally, a purge has begun. You don't understand what that means, not yet. Not until you return to a safe house in Darrensford, hoping to find a former contact, and find their body nailed to the door instead. Throat slit. Message scrawled in blood. He is watching. It's not just you they want. The guild is eliminating every loose tie Myarick ever had. Anyone who might have known what he was doing, who he trained, what he planned, and maybe what he feared. You were never the only one. That's the truth the guild wants to bury.
because Meyerick was preparing something, a faction inside the guild, an inner circle to unseat the old order, to take control. You were just a weapon in that game, one of many. Now you wonder who else is running. You begin to track them, not openly, but through whispers. Mercenary camps, poison cellars, smugglers' ledgers. You find one in a church ruin disguised as a dying monk. He nearly kills you before recognizing your voice. His name is Varen. He remembers you from training, back when Meyerick had a dozen young killers sparring in candlelit cellars. Varen has scars on both forearms. You know what they mean. Punishment from the guild for asking questions. You sit by firelight, blades resting beside you, and share everything. The mark, the betrayal, the purge. And Varen says the words you've been avoiding. We can't run forever. It begins that night. You carve sigils into tree bark, ancient assassin signs, a call to arms, a rebellion, a death wish. Maybe all three. Some will ignore it. Some will report it. But a few remember what the guild was, before the rot, before the nobles turned it into their private sword. You start to gather them, one by one. A silent blade dancer from the North Isles, a potion maker who once poisoned a prince for a bowl of rice, a former scribe who can rewrite contracts without leaving ink behind. They come to you bruised, hunted, desperate, but ready. The guild senses it. You feel them tightening their grip. More watchers in the streets, more corpses with black circles etched on skin. They think fear will stop you. They've forgotten what they trained you to be. You don't fear death. You just hate being owned. And so a plan begins. Not to destroy the guild. That would take an army and 100 years. But to cut out its heart. To infiltrate its black council, expose its deepest lies, and show the world that the ones who kill in silence are not gods. They bleed, just like anyone else. You always thought the guild was a network of shadows. No real center, no throne, just whispers and steel passed through 1,000 hands. You were wrong. There is a center, a core, a council. They call it the Black Circle. The 13 masked figures who oversee everything. They pass judgment, issue contracts, control who lives, who dies, and who simply vanishes. And they have never been seen in full, not by anyone who lived to tell it. Until now. You learn of them through fragments, confessions under threat, scrolls half-burned, and whispers traded for silence. The Black Council meets only once per year, in a ruined fortress deep within the Weeping Stones, a barren mountain range where even the crows refuse to nest. They call the place Virehold. It was once a prison for mad kings. Now it cages something worse, unchecked power. And you're going to walk straight into it. Of course, you can't go alone. Your rebellion has grown. You've become something whispered through alleyways and behind tavern doors, the burned blade, the one who defied the circle, the one who doesn't die. More gather. A former guild accountant turned forger, a mute child who kills with needles dipped in venom, an archer who used to mark the deaths of targets with folded origami, left like funeral tokens. They don't follow you because they trust you. They follow because they have nothing left to lose. And in your world, That's the most dangerous kind of loyalty. But even rebels need an invitation. No one walks into Virehold, not without a token, a sign from the guild itself, a sigil carved from obsidian and dipped in blood. You need one. So you do something suicidal. You steal it from the vault master of the southern chapter, a man whose vault is guarded by walls thicker than castle gates, whose sleep is watched by 2 assassins with flame-kissed blades. You get in disguised as a corpse. You get out covered in someone else's blood. The token is cold in your palm. It pulses slightly, like it knows what's coming. The journey to Virehold takes 13 days. You travel under false stars, across dead woods, over cliffs where wolves refuse to howl. You pass through fog so thick it smothers your torch, and through silence so pure it deafens. And all the while, you prepare. The token buys you passage through the first ring of guards. You speak no words, just nod. They don't look at you twice. Inside, you're surrounded by others, killers, spies, war architects, the guild's elite. All of them think they're untouchable. None of them recognize you. Yet. The meeting chamber is colder than death. Stone floors, no banners, no torches, only braziers burning a faint blue flame, alchemical fire that never smokes and never dims. The 13 seats of the Black Council are arranged in a half circle. Each member wears a mask. Each mask is carved from bone. They speak in turns, their voices altered through pipes and woodwinds in the walls, mechanisms to conceal their identity. But you don't need names, because you recognize the mannerisms, the way one taps a finger, the way another tilts their head at the mention of a noble house. You may not know their faces, but you know their tells. Assassins forget you studied them the same way you studied targets. You memorize weakness, like others memorize prayers. You listen to how they speak of power like wine, to how they weigh lives like coin, to how they mention the problem, you, as a virus to be cut out. And you smile, because they have no idea you're already in the room. The plan begins. Subtle, not loud. You bribe a torchbearer. You slip poison into the council's wine, but not to kill, only to slow reaction. You alter a scroll containing names of defectors. You ensure that your rebels, those who followed you, are replaced on the guild's purge list with names from within the council's own circle. A week passes, then another. You learn which one is embezzling from the treasury. You learn which one still mourns a brother lost to the guild's betrayal. You learn which one doubts the others. That's the crack. And you wedge a knife into it. It begins with a single betrayal. An explosion during a quiet night. One council member dead. Another missing. The survivors panic. Not openly, of course. They still wear their masks. But you can see it. In the way they move, the way they look over their shoulders, the way they double-check their wine cups and sleep with hands on their blades. Fear is a weapon, and you're now its master. One night, in the silence after a storm, You leave a letter on the high seat. No one sees you enter. No one sees you leave. The letter reads, "We are the ones you made, and now we are the ones unmaking you." No signature, no name, but they know exactly who wrote it. Weierhold has changed. Where once silence ruled, now paranoia walks the halls. The guards, once proud, faceless, perfect, flinch at shadows. The torchbearers speak in whispers. Every mask hides eyes that no longer trust the others. You've lit the match. Now you watch the fire spread. It begins with the fourth seat. He dies choking on his own breath, poisoned not by you, but by one of his own agents. A quiet girl who slipped a black root into his stew. She was yours once. Then the guild stole her. Now she repays the favor in full. The guild finds her body hanging from a rafter by morning, her tongue cut out and left in her own hand. A message. No one is safe. Then the seventh seat vanishes. His chamber is found empty, no blood, no struggle, just a single token on the pillow, a miniature dagger carved of bone, the mark Merrick used for his favorite recruits. They think it's a threat. You know it's a promise. The cracks widen. The Black Council starts withdrawing into private quarters. Messengers double their guards. New rules emerge. No one enters chambers alone. No one dines without food tasters. No one speaks a name out loud unless it's already dead. The guild, once cold and calculated, is unraveling like rotten cloth. Outside the fortress, your rebels move like wind through reeds. They sabotage supply lines, intercept messages, spread misinformation, false names, false betrayals, false sightings of you in cities far away. Every whisper tightens the noose. Every lie lays the foundation for truth. You've weaponized doubt, and now you bring the blade. You strike on the 13th night. You and 3 others, Varen, the Blade Dancer, and the Mute Child, slip into Weierhold through a side tunnel carved during a siege a century ago, forgotten by most, remembered by you. You've studied the patterns, the guard shifts, the secret signals. Your old training works against them now. One by one you breach the fortress. The Blade Dancer kills without a sound, her twin knives flashing like moonlight. Varen handles the locks. The Mute Child, now barely 10, poisons lantern oil with a concoction that blinds on contact. You leave no witnesses, but you leave signs. Broken masks, scratched circles, small effigies wrapped in black string, the mark of the burned blade. The guild begins to fear its own stories. You reach the Chamber of Edicts, the heart of the guild's records. Every contract, name, secret, all stored here in ledgers bound with flesh and sealed with blood. This is where they planned the purge, where they branded your name for death, where they decided which lives were worth coin and which were discarded. You torch it. Scrolls scream as they burn. Ink bubbles, parchment curl, secrets vanish in fire. You don't watch it all turn to ash. You leave before the screams begin. By dawn, 3 more council seats are empty. The survivors send out a signal, an ancient one, used only once before in guild history. A call to the final silence. It means the guild has entered a state of civil war. Every assassin loyal to the council is now authorized to kill any who question its orders, including each other. Your rebellion, which once was a whisper, now becomes an avalanche. Other outcasts rise, some in your name, others because they smell blood and opportunity. Even guild chapters from distant kingdoms break rank, choosing to vanish rather than die for the crumbling center. The Black Council begins to offer bribes, then promises, then threats. And when that fails, they offer you a seat. You receive the offer through a messenger with a stitched mouth, a scroll tied in red silk. It reads, "End this. Take your place among the circle. Rebuild what you've broken. Return and be remembered not as a traitor, but as a savior." Your rebels wait for your reply. Some urge caution, others spit at the thought. Varen says nothing, just watches you with tired eyes and a fresh scar across his brow. The blade dancer carves the word liars into a table with her knife. And you? You think. Because they don't understand. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. Not for you. For everyone who'd ever been pulled from the mud and turned into a tool. For everyone whose pain became someone else's coin. For every young killer like that boy Merrick brought to the cellar, trained only to die in someone else's plan. No more. You write your reply on a torn scrap of map. It says, "There is no seat left for tyrants." And you nail it to the gates of Virehold with a dagger carved from Merrick's bone.
You've begun to realize that in the shadows, even shadows turn against you. Being a medieval assassin wasn't just about escaping detection by nobles, guards, or clergy. It was about surviving the ever-present threat from within your own order. The very brotherhood that trained you, fed you, and whispered sacred doctrines into your ear might, without a second thought, decide that you had become a liability. Perhaps you saw something you shouldn't have. Perhaps you failed a mission and lived. Perhaps more dangerously, you started asking why. Why kill this merchant's son or that orphaned monk? Why did some targets feel like political puppets more than moral monsters? The moment those doubts slithered through your mind, so too did the blade of paranoia. No one spoke openly of purges, but everyone knew they happened. Disappearances weren't questioned. If a fellow assassin missed roll call for 3 days, no one dared ask. Brotherhood loyalty meant silence. It meant keeping your own secrets and never looking too long at someone else's. Trust was poison. You never turned your back during meals. You watched who handed you your cup. You slept in short bursts, one eye cracked open, your fingers resting on your dagger's hilt. In the rare occasions you shared an assignment with another assassin, you walked beside them like you would beside a snake, calm, smiling, but ready to strike if needed. The irony was brutal. The Order was supposed to be your family, but there was no love here, no camaraderie, just necessity, fear, and blood oaths. One day your handler summoned you before dawn. You'd just returned from a mission, exhausted, your ribs still bruised from a scuffle with a castle guard, the scent of burnt parchment still on your cloak from torching the target's scrolls. And now you stood, kneeling before the one who'd once taught you how to kill without mercy. He didn't look at you like a mentor anymore. He looked at you like a chess player surveying a worn-out piece. He handed you a scroll, red wax seal, no insignia. You knew immediately this was no regular contract. Your fingers trembled as you opened it, already guessing the name inside. And there it was, a name you knew better than your own. Yours. Your mouth went dry. You looked up to speak, but the handler was already walking away. They weren't killing you yet, not directly. This was the cruelest part. They gave you the notice. They gave you a chance to run, or fight, or make peace with your fate. Maybe they wanted to see what you'd do. Would you beg, flee, return to them and try to earn your redemption? Or would you do what you always did? Kill. But who now? There were no clear enemies anymore. Everyone could be a blade waiting to drop. You couldn't trust your allies.
couldn't return to the cities you once ghosted through, couldn't visit that healer who once stitched your leg and fed you boiled roots. They'd be watched too. So you vanish. Not in the dramatic storybook way. You don't leap off cathedral spires into hay bales or stage your death in flaming ruins. No, you simply walk away. Into woods, into freezing mountain passes, into storm-battered fishing villages where no one asks names and people disappear all the time. You learn to gut fish. You sleep under driftwood. You watch your back even when no one seems to be watching you. Sometimes you think you see a face in the fog, but you can never be sure. The worst part? You understand why they did it. Your failure, your hesitation, your doubts, in their logic, you'd already turned traitor. And you know that if roles were reversed, if you had received the order to kill a former brother, you might have accepted it too. That's what years in the order did to you. It made death a duty. Now, alone, you start to question the purpose behind it all. Was it ever about justice or just power? Was the creed truly sacred or just a mask for men hungry for control? Those thoughts used to get people like you killed. Now, they're all you have. So you keep moving, always one step ahead, or at least trying to be. You survive by being invisible, forgettable. No marks, no names, just a shadow passing through. Because the moment you stop, you know a blade will greet you, and it will feel familiar.
You once believed the creed would free you, that it offered purpose beyond the cruel chaos of the world, guidance in a land ruled by tyrants, where kings butchered the poor and priests cloaked their crimes in scripture. The Brotherhood gave you rules, structure, a family. They gave you meaning. But now, every line of the creed feels like a curse you've memorized too well. Nothing is true. Yes, you learned that early. Justice, an illusion. Nobility, bought and sold. Even the Brotherhood's righteous targets, the greedy barons, the corrupt sheriffs, were often replaced by someone worse. You started to see the lies beneath the lies. That truth was just a blade some men learned to sharpen better than others. Everything is permitted. A line that once thrilled you now haunts your nights. At first it gave you the freedom to act, to strike, to survive. But over time, it turned everything hollow. If everything is permitted, then nothing is sacred. No act too cruel, no victim too innocent. Children, lovers, scholars, or beggars, it didn't matter. If they were on the list, they died. It twisted you. Even in your rare moments of peace, like when a child handed you bread in a market, or an old woman called you son without knowing who you were, you couldn't forget. Your hands looked clean, but they weren't. The blood never left, only dried invisible. You remember one target clearly. A monk. Old, blind, and kind. He helped orphans in a crumbling priory far from the politics of the city. Your orders were clear. Kill him. He was said to be harboring secret heretical texts, but you stayed, watched, saw him teach the poor to read, saw him give away food he could barely spare, saw him burn his own bedding to keep a child warm. You hesitated. For the first time, you waited. And that was your sin. 2 days later, the monk was found strangled in his sleep anyway. Not by you, someone else had completed the mission. But you were already marked. The creed doesn't forgive disobedience. It doesn't care about doubt. And once you started questioning why,
The Brotherhood saw you as a cracked stone in the foundation, a fracture that could spread. They feared what you'd become. Maybe they were right. Now, on the run, you live in places that don't welcome outsiders. You sleep beneath leaking roofs and use a false name every week. You teach yourself to limp differently in each village just to throw off recognition. Once, you even shaved your head and painted your skin with ash to pass as a leper. It worked. For a time. But the creed chases you. Not just in the form of assassins, but in your mind. You hear its whispers in wind-blown leaves, in the scrape of metal, in the silence between breaths. And yet, you can't let it go. Part of you wants to believe again, wants the comfort of clarity, wants to kneel before a master and hear, "You were right, we were wrong, come home." But you know that won't happen. They don't reclaim ghosts, they silence them. There were others like you once. You met one, briefly, in a border town. He'd once been a master. His face was scarred, voice broken. He said little, but his eyes told you he understood. He didn't run anymore. He waited. Said the only way to win against the creed was not to fight it, to vanish until time buried its poison. You wanted to believe him, but you also knew the Brotherhood's patience. You parted ways before dawn. Weeks later, you heard the town had burned. You don't know if it was them, but deep down, you do. So you keep moving. Sometimes you leave coded messages in forgotten tombs, symbols only another rogue assassin might recognize, a way of saying, "You're not alone." Sometimes they vanish the next day. Sometimes they're altered. Once, a reply came. Just one word carved under yours. Run. You did. But you wonder how many of you are there now. How many exiles, how many defectors roam the forests and wastes? Does the Brotherhood fear you? Or do they laugh, knowing you'll never reunite, never organize, never rebuild? The creed broke your chains, then welded new ones, invisible, heavier. You've become a shadow of a shadow. You don't kill anymore, not because you believe it's wrong, but because you fear what it will bring. The moment you act, you draw light to yourself, and light attracts death. So you play the coward, the penitent, the survivor. But sometimes, when the moon is high and the streets are empty, you still feel the dagger at your side. You touch it, not to use, but to remember who you were, what you did, what you lost, and what might one day return to claim you. The Brotherhood gave you purpose. Then it cursed you with it. And the worst part is, you still believe in some of it. Even now. Even after everything. It starts with a sound. A soft knock. 3 taps, spaced exactly. Not hurried, not uncertain, measured. The kind of knock that means someone knows you. Someone who doesn't have to ask twice. You're already on your feet before the last echo fades. Your heartbeat doesn't quicken. No, you're past panic now. You've trained yourself for this. Years of hiding have dulled your fear into something sharper, instinct. You don't reach for your blade, not yet. That would mean accepting the inevitable, and you always hoped, just a little, it wouldn't come. But it has. You crack the door. Nobody there. Just a folded scrap of parchment resting on the step. No seal. No name. You don't pick it up, not at first. You stare at it for a full minute, watching the wind tease its corners, listening for footsteps, breathing like prey. Then you kneel and open it. 2 words written in the old cipher. It's time. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you prepare. Not for a fight, you know you won't survive one, but for clarity. For once in your shattered life, you want to understand the ending that's coming. You dress simply. The same faded leathers. You fasten your belt the old way, twist your hood with the old knot, clean your blade, not to use, but to carry. Ritual. Memory. You stare into the cracked mirror, barely recognizing the lines on your face, the dullness in your eyes. You've aged without noticing. The world has too. You step into the cold before dawn. The meeting place isn't written. It doesn't need to be. You know. There are places, sacred to the order, where silence gathers like fog. Abandoned ruins, forgotten crypts, graves without names. You walk miles, feet bleeding. One last pilgrimage through the land you once stalked unseen. Every step feels like a farewell to the trees, to the sky, to the ghosts you've carried. You find the ruin at dusk. Stone walls half collapsed. Moss clings to ancient sigils. The air smells like earth and iron and memory. He's waiting inside. Of course it's him, the one you least wanted to see but always expected. A man you once called brother, a man who trained beside you, bled beside you, and laughed when you couldn't. He hasn't aged as much, or maybe the shadows are kind to him. He doesn't draw his blade, neither do you. Instead, you sit across from each other, on broken stone, like monks in silent prayer. I thought it would be you, you say. He nods. You always knew. No venom, no rage, only inevitability. The conversation is brief, sparse words. You speak of old missions, names long dead, cities now swallowed by other wars. You don't ask why he came. You both already know. You ask only one question. Was I wrong? He doesn't answer right away. Then, no. The wind moves through the ruin like breath. But you were dangerous, he adds. And we don't leave wounds open. You laugh, dry and brittle. That's what we are, aren't we? Just blades pretending to be surgeons. Neither of you smiles. You reach into your coat, not for a weapon, but for a scroll. Old, frayed. You've rewritten it dozens of times. Your own version of the creed. Not to replace it, just to understand it. You hand it to him. I didn't want to die misunderstood, you say. He takes it. Reads the first line. His brow softens. You wait. Kneeling now. Not pleading. Just still. His blade slides out soundlessly. You don't flinch. It's fast. Clean. The way you always tried to do it. As the world blurs, you don't see regret in his eyes, nor triumph. only duty. The last thing you feel is the cold, the weight of the air, and then peace. No more running. No more shadows. No more silence. Just the soft echo of the creed, somewhere deep in your mind. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. And this time, you finally believe it.